Hi, this is Fugen from Treeleaf. Today we'll continue our journey with the Lotus Sutra. We'll be using the Burton Watson translation, but I encourage you, if you want to do text studies like this, use different versions to kind of find the meaning behind the words. We'll continue with chapter 2 of this book, which is called Expedient Means, in which we look at what the Buddha teaches, how he teaches, and why the 5,000 people leave when he starts to teach. And we start right off a bit into the text. This law cannot be described, words fall silent before it. The true entity of all phenomena can only be understood and shared between Buddhas. This reality consists of the appearance, nature, entity, power, influence, inherent cause, relation, latent effect, and manifest effect, and their consistency from beginning to end. That means they all, in this world, have some sort of relation to something else. But the Buddha is speaking or teaching about something that is beyond all this that is in this world, let's say, in relation to something else, that is. We've seen that again and again, for instance, in texts like the Heart Sutra, which we chant quite often here at Treeleaf. Among heavenly beings or the people of the world, among all living beings, none can understand the Buddha. The Buddha's power, fearlessness, emancipation and samadhis, and the Buddha's other attributes no one can reckon or fathom. That means that you can't understand what the Buddha is about, what he's doing, what he is, and what not. And after he said this, Shariputra, who sits right next to him, is the guy that's almost always with the Buddha. He realized that the people that have gathered there, like many people, both monks and nuns and lay people and lay women, they might have some doubts. They don't all really realize what the Buddha is talking about. So he asks the Buddha 3 times, and the Buddha declines. Well, actually 2 times. The third time, the Buddha says, "Okay, I'll start to preach." At that time, the world-honored one said to Shariputra, 3 times you have stated your earnest request. How can I do other than preach? When he had spoken these words, there were some 5,000 monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, 4 kinds. Monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. That means that there were not only monks there, despite what some people might want to think, but there were all kinds of people there listening to the Buddha. Who immediately rose from their seats, bowed to the Buddha, and withdrew. What was the reason for this? These persons had roots of guilt that were deep and manifold, and in addition they were overbearingly arrogant. What they had not attained, they supposed they had attained. What they had not understood, they supposed they had understood. And because they had this failing, they did not remain where they were. That means they were not open to the teachings. They were not open in their mind for that there might be something else outside what they thought. They were one track, they were one-sided, they were narcissistic in their thinking and in their ways. They were not open to seeing other possibilities other than their own. But the world-honored one was silent and did not try to detain them. Okay, he didn't say anything, he just let them leave. Later on in the text, he does comment on them. There are monks and nuns who behave with overbearing arrogance, laymen full of self-esteem, laywomen who are lacking in faith. Among the 4 kinds of believers, monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, The likes of these number 5,000. They fail to see their own errors, are heedless and remiss with regard to the precepts, clinging to their shortcomings, unwilling to change. So, in short, they are not open, they are not willing to try, well, maybe not try, but willing to accept that there might be something else, that there might be something that they can learn. Yeah. And then he sort of speaks again about how and what this does. He's speaking about the expedient means. Shariputra, the Buddhas preach the law in accordance with what is appropriate, but the meaning is difficult to understand. Why is this? Because we employ countless expedient means, discussing causes and conditions, using words of simile and parable to expound the teachings. That means that he uses different kinds of teachings. He might use a teaching that works for you, but that teaching might not work for me. So, in his doing of teaching, he's reaching out to all the different people. And you see that through the text. In every different text, he does different things depending on where he is and who he's speaking to, which has caused some confusions into what he's really saying and what the core teaching of his teachings is. But we all know it. It's quite basically the four truths that is the basis of it. And he's always talking about dukkha and how we can manage and handle dukkha. All the other things is extra. Shariputra, sorry. Blah, 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 blah. The law is not something that can be understood through pondering or analysis. That means you can't just sit there and read through to it. Although it might be a very good means to help along the way, you can't just sit there and read your way to it. You have to really live it. It's like experiencing a sunset. Sure, you can read about the sunset, you can watch a painting about the sunset, but unless you really experience it yourself, you don't understand the sunset. And maybe not even then. And then he starts talking about all the Buddhas. There are countless and countless of Buddhas. And they are on all 10 directions. That means they're all over, in all the worlds that they are. And he uses the cosmology that is prevalent of that time. So he's talking using the words. I mean, if we were talking about today, he would be using all the things that are all over the internet. There are people doing things through Facebook or Twitter or I don't know what comes next. So, but what they do, Shariputra, these Buddhas simply teach and convert the Bodhisattvas. They do it because they wish to show the Buddha wisdom to living beings. They do it because they wish to use Buddha wisdom to enlighten beings. They do it because they wish to cause beings to enter the path of Buddha wisdom. That means that they use their knowledge to help others. They use what they have at hand to help others. They use everything they can to help others. Quite simple, huh? Sometimes he preaches sutras, verses, stories of previous lives of disciples, stories of the previous lives of the Buddha, of unheard things. At other times, he preaches regarding causes and conditions, using similes, parables, passages of poetry or discourses. For those of dull capacities who delight in a little law, who greedily cling to birth and death, who despite the innumerable Buddhas, fail to practice the profound and wonderful ways, but are perplexed and confused by a host of troubles, for these I preach nirvana. I devise these expedient means, and so cause them to enter into the Buddha wisdom. So, depending on who he's speaking to, he uses different versions of teachings to help them along the way. And as I usually say, that even though he's teaching them something, or you, it's not certain that you learn it. It's like the old story about the guy that teaches a dog how to whistle. And a friend comes along and says, "Oh, look, I taught my dog how to whistle." "Oh, let's see. I said I taught him to whistle. It doesn't mean that he's learned how to whistle." But what is it that he's teaching? It comes a short way into saying that at the end of this section. Although I preach nirvana, this is not a true extinction. All phenomena from the very first have of themselves constantly borne the marks of tranquil extinction. The Buddhas, the most honored ones of two-legged beings, know that phenomena have no constantly fixed nature. That it means that everything is always changing. That the seeds of Buddhahood sprout through causation, and for this reason they preach the single vehicle, that is the Buddha Dharma. But that these phenomena are part of an abiding law, that the characteristics of the world are constantly abiding, this they have come to know in the place of practice, and as leaders and teachers they preach expedient means. So, please continue with your practice. It's all good practice. Thank you for listening, and may the force be with you.